Hey, horror fans! Welcome back to another episode of Week in Horror. This week we're going over July 12th through the 18th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Alex. As always, I've got with me Eugene and JL.
What's up, everybody?
How's it going, everyone?
You having a good week so far?
It has not been too bad. It hasn't. Still working. Still considered essential. So, there was a little bit of time where I was sent home because I did get exposed, but that's over and done with. Now I'm back at work and everybody is masked up because we got the mask orders, throughout the state and throughout pretty much the state of Texas. So hopefully, maybe we'll curve because we keep putting up record numbers. It's fucking crazy.
Man, you can get those masks anywhere out there too. Like I was at the Buc-ee's down the road from my house, and at the front counter, normally you'd buy some like pack of gum or some candy bar you didn't need, but now they have like hand sanitizers and 50 packs of disposable face masks. So it's just life norms now.
Wild.
Yeah, that's what it's come down to. So now when you go to grocery stores, instead of seeing candy bars and stuff like that, it's all masks and hand sanitizer. Like, ooh, I need to refill my hand sanitizer in the car. All right then, yeah.
These are your new impulse buys. These are the impulse buys of the second half of 2020. It used to be cigarette lighters and air fresheners and candy bars. Now it's fucking pocket hand sanitizer, masks, and gloves.
That is 2020 coming on the backside.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the backside. The second half of 2020.
Radio.
Crazy. Well, given that we're all pretty much shut down and nothing really solid nothing really major has gone down as far because we're either stuck in the house or we're at work. So given all the fucking craziness going on in Texas, we got all these giant numbers that we're putting up. People are getting sick all over the place. I fortunately, knock on wood, have not gotten sick. Hopefully I won't because this shit will lay you I knocked on wood. Yeah, this shit will lay you the fuck out. So everybody stay safe out there. And you know what? We're going to bypass all this craziness. We're going to get right into the fucking movie.
I think so. All right. Let's get started. What do we have first, Eugene?
All right, so we have a lovely little gem coming up first. That was it's a fun movie. It's a creepy movie, but not in terms of like super scary. It's just creepy as in the creatures in it. And so it was released July 14th, 1976, and it's the movie Squirm. Squirm. Creepy crawlers.
I am the worm man, cuckoo choo.
Okay.
All right. And so it was directed by Jeff Lieberman, and it stars Dawn Scardino. Yeah, Dawn Scardino, Patricia Percy, R.A. Dow, and Gene Sullivan. And basically, in a nutshell, you have Mick who's trying to go see his girlfriend in this small little town, and the storm comes through and knocks these power lines down, and the power lines cause like these like millipedes and centipedes and stuff like that to go crazy and like start going after and eating people. Yes.
I'm sorry, but if you sent, what was it, like 100,000 volts through my house, I'd be kind of pissed too.
Oh, it was 300,000 volts.
they were not hungry.
So they were 200,000 volts more pissed off.
Man, I'd be eating people too.
They're like, fuck it, we're eating people now. That's it. We're tired of this dirt.
It's fucking crazy. I think the thing that the reason it wasn't as scary was because the studio actually cut this thing from an R to a PG-13 or to a PG rating because PG-13 didn't exist at the time. But they cut it from an R to a PG rating, which took out a lot of the big scary stuff. But that does not discount Rick Baker's work in this because I think this movie was the first time Baker had ever worked with prosthetics in a film. 5
years into his career. And first time you ever messed around with prosthetics for the fucking worm man.
So despite the lack of like scares, the film is insanely creepy and somewhat gross in some respects. But I love the fact that I love this because this movie is it's not one of the earliest examples, but is another example in the horror trope of electricity making everything evil. That if something gets struck by lightning, it instantly turns like, it's like alignment shift. Boom. Just chaotic evil, kill everything.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we saw it we see it in Chopping Mall. In Chopping Mall, that the robots get struck by lightning and they start killing sight. And in this one, the worms get struck by lightning. The ground gets struck by lightning. The worms are like, what the fuck? They piss. They jump up. They start eating everyone like fast too.
Haven't you
like
ever
piranha worms?
Haven't you ever fucking electrocuted yourself? I get pissed off when it happens.
Usually I'm kind of like, ow, what the fuck? Oh, I don't want to eat people.
I'm upset, but not that angry.
It happens.
I'm not that angry. But I love that trope. I love it. It's such a goofy notion. And I don't know why it's still a thing. I think it's still a thing because it is so goofy. Inanimate shit gets struck by lightning and then automatically becomes, animate or, evil or something. I think the only time it didn't happen was Short Circuit because it didn't happen to Johnny Five. Johnny Five wasn't evil.
It's kind of like a go-to. So it's like we need to explain why this thing's evil. Well, just have it strike lightning. Cool. All right. That's it. No further explanation.
Haven't you ever seen the movie Powder?
Well, he was. That's different. He was living lightning.
He was a cool dude.
That was
because it's a good movie and had to do with lightning.
But I dig it. It's even though the premise is absolutely goofy. Particular praise has got to go to the work of Rick Baker, because if it wasn't for his stuff, then this film could have easily fallen off the track. Even though it was lampooned by MST3K, and I think it was in their 10th season. Even though they did make they put it up, Crow and they all made fun of it. It's still not as terrible as like Monos, The Hands of Fate, or some of the other shit that they lampooned. But it's decent, but only because of Rick Baker. It was Rick Baker's makeup effects and prosthetic effects that actually saved this movie.
Yeah. And you have to keep in mind that like Mystery Science Theater waited till like season 10. So that's like okay, we're starting to run out of some movies. We'll go ahead and put it on there.
Oh shit, throw Squirm in there. Yeah, this like you're talking about, this movie definitely could have gone off the rails real quick. And it's not like it was like as bad as some of the acting we'll talk about later in the episode, but it was like you said, like with Worm Face, these prosthetics, it's the first time Rick Baker's done prosthetics, and just like everything he's ever done, it just fucking works. It always does. But like this was only like 5 years into his career. I was doing research on this movie, and there was so much behind like how they did not even just like the Rick Baker's like effects, but like with the worms, like how half of them were rubber, and they like went and dug up a whole shitload of worms, and it like affected the fishing industry in the area and stuff. The sandworms that they brought in from Maine, and but then you get like stuff like Rick Baker's effects in it. And I think the effects actually just all around saved this movie because it was wild because they got a bunch. Now in the movie, part of the movie is that it was like 100,000 bloodworms. Yeah, they had
and sandworms.
Yeah, thousands of
bloodworms and sandworms. And I know from watching a show. There was a show on Discovery. I think it was in Discovery, or it might have been. Anyway, it was a show about like really really suck ass jobs. And one of those suck ass jobs was a Maine worm digger up in so along the mud flats in Maine, along the coast. There are guys who go out there and they actually hunt worms, and they dig worms up.
You're the worm guy.
Could you imagine like back-breaking labor? Just bent over, slogging through the mud, digging up bloodworms, digging up basically fishing worms, and then they stack them all together. They take them to the local bait shops, and then they sell them. And then that's how they make their living.
Like Nick Totopoulos.
And yeah, and from that I learned that bloodworms actually do bite. Bloodworms are actually a biting worm, so they actually will bite you. And if you have to be careful because you put your bloodworms in with another type of worm, they'll actually bite kill each other.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So you have to keep your worms separate. But it was really really neat because there's this big ass scene because they had all these worms in it. So many worms were used in this, it actually caused a shortage in the worm population for the next season.
Yeah, the fisherman was
Because
pissed.
they used so many. And I really dug the there's this big ass scene other than the prosthetics that were used to make worm face.
Oh my god, which were fucking
when
amazing.
Roger gets all like the worms are fucking hanging out of him and shit. It was fucking gross. They turned him into Worm Man. But there was this badass scene in the living room when the whole room was filled up with worms, and they actually built like a 4-foot scaffolding up off the ground. And then a canvas was placed on top of it, and then like the 6 inches deep of worms were placed on top of this thing.
Thousands of fucking worms.
Damn.
You're talking about the living room scene.
And then exactly, that's how they were. And with the canvas on top of the scaffolding, they were able to get the undulating effect. So it looked like this
Giant pile
writhing
of
mass. It was
writhing
really
worms.
cool. Exactly, yeah. It was really inventive stuff. Obviously Peter would have had a problem with these things. With all these friggin'. I think they said when they went to like 3 million worms on this thing.
Damn.
I mean,
Yeah, it was flipping crazy.
yeah, I
They
mean, but
went
hey,
through so many,
that's what
but,
made the whole thing.
I mean,
I imagine. Go ahead.
I mean, you want a worm people eating movie, and that's exactly what you got. They delivered on it.
It's not like it's terrible. If I had a choice of like this or a lot of other movies, these B movies around that time, I would have definitely taken this. But
I'll give you this. There's a little bit of trivia for, I don't know if you guys know this or the audience might know this, but in the movie, you remember how the worms like made noises?
yeah,
And some of them like screamed and stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Like the worm screaming. Your worm screaming. That's funny as shit. Everything was done in post-production, but the worm screams are actually the sounds of the pigs being slaughtered in the movie Carrie.
Oh, that's cool.
Reused.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, in that slaughtering scene in De Palma's Carrie. So it was a wild little bit of trivia that I was not aware of when I first watched this movie. I was like, and then you hear it again, you're like, holy shit!
Oh, fuck.
That's like fucking that's like Jaws. When Jaws blows up in the very first movie, he's like, eat this, you son of a bitch, or here, you smile, you son of a bitch, and he blows up the shark, and the shark goes underwater. It's like, boah, and you hear that kind of noise, like, boah. Yeah, that shit, that noise of the shark going down after it exploded was actually Spielberg reused the sound of the 18-wheeler going off the cliff in Duel.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So he took that same sound and just modulated it and put it like it was underwater.
So
Same sound.
he was just like going through this, like, man, what sound have I used in one of my fucking how many movies have you done? Which one? Oh yeah, that one where the fucking truck was going off the cliff. That'll sound like a shark sinking. What?
It worked though.
Hey.
Cause that sound was creepy. Watching Duel and like the truck like twisting and stuff like that, and it was like screaming. I'm doing a horrible impression of it, but that was a creepy sound.
It was wild. It's wild. That's why, while the film is not huge, the stuff that goes into making a movie like this is really, really neat. As far as working with, especially with animals, stuff like this, working under the constraints of a normal budget. Because I think they shot the movie in like 5 weeks, and like one solid week of that was dedicated solely to shooting with the worms, and then dealing with, the movie itself is pretty cut and dry once you take all the worms out of it. It's pretty boilerplate stuff for a horror/thriller. And the little secrets, the little tricks of the trade that go into it, how they made things work. How, imagine being Worm-Face when Roger is down there and he falls into the sea of worms. He's like, Worm Man. He's like, ah. And he comes out and he like bites the cop in the leg. Argh. It's just, weird shit like that. You imagine being the actor who has to jump down into the freaking canvas full of fucking worms, and then he's head to toe in them, and he's like, ah. So, but I love it because of all the little things that were behind the massive amount of work behind the scenes, which you don't really see which might have hurt the film. You don't really see the end result of so much effort and so much work behind the scenes to get very little payoff in the film, which I think is one of the things that may have hurt it. Jumping it down to a PG from an R I think is what kind of death knelled the movie. Otherwise, it may have been one of the better, like, I would say, natural horror films.
Yeah, because nowadays when it comes to horror films, you have to have the R rating, or people won't even take your horror film seriously. Or like, oh, it's a family horror film or something like that. It has to be the R. Well, because even with James Wan, when he did the first Saw movie, and the original cut was PG-13. And he was like, no, it's not going to work. No one will take it seriously. So they went and spent like a day and just reshot just gore. Just like when she's like digging through the key from the guy's stomach and she holding the intestines and stuff. Like that was was shot afterwards. Just the intestines, her playing with it a little bit, just enough to get that R rating.
You know, it's wild when you think back to the 70s like that, and like how much stuff they actually got away with, you know, to get a PG rating, because there was no PG-13. If this movie had released today, it definitely would be PG-13. You would not want children watching this movie, and a little bit more violence, because there wasn't much violence between the people, is what it was. Mostly it was just worms versus people. So, but I mean, it's amazing, because like movies like The Car, that was PG. You know, in order to get an R back then, you had to be dropping like F-bombs or having straight up, like, you know, people getting shot in the head and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there wasn't an in between, and that's when you had the whole controversy with Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it helped create the whole PG-13, because it was just like people thought PG was something that's for kids, and then you had hard R for adults. You know, so there wasn't anything. So many films just fell in between, and so some of them would get that PG-13 where some would get that PG rating where they should have been PG-13, or some they're just like, well, I don't know, and it's always been up and down with the code.
Wild.
It really is. But so we've talked about definitely with Worms and some other natural horror films. I actually like to ask the audience, what is your favorite natural horror film? Whether it's worms or ants or spiders, or we'll talk about a couple others later on in the podcast.
We've talked about one already, frogs.
Yeah, frogs. So frog.
And I know eventually we're going to get to I can't remember which one we're going to get to first, but like Arachnophobia or Kingdom of the Spiders with William Shatner.
Yeah, or
Oh yeah.
What? William Shatner was the sheriff in that movie.
No, you're right.
The spiders are taking over the town.
There's spiders everywhere.
They're so big.
They're so big. They are here. But yeah, so there's plenty of them out there. Also, I think one of my favorites is Eight-Legged Freaks.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that kind. So let us know. Shoot us an email at weekendhorror@gmail.com and tell us what your favorite natural horror film is. And
awesome.
JL, what do we got next?
Oh, shit. Yes. We're actually going to go a little bit more comedic with this one, but actually we're going to stay in the realm of natural horror. Released July 16th, 1999. Some years later, we got the horror comedy Lake Placid. Actually, I probably should say comedy horror on this one, because this one actually was quite funny. But yes, Lake Placid, directed by Steve Miner and written by David E. Kelly, starring Bill Pullman, Bridget Fonda, Oliver Platt, Brendan Gleeson, and Betty White, of all people. And you can tell by this cast that they really intended to start something with this movie. In a nutshell, basic summary of the movie is giant crocodile, 30-foot crocodile, attacks the partygoers, the visitors to Lake Placid, is pretty much what it is. And, all wackiness ensues. I personally, I like this movie. I really, really do. It was a throwback to giant animal horror, and it was coming hot on the heels of Anaconda. But I love the giant animal horror because we hadn't gotten it in so long.
Yeah, because it kind of had like a resurgence with Anaconda, which Anaconda is it's an okay movie, but it was okay. But you started getting
that was a fucking great movie.
Anaconda was good if you don't know like what an anaconda is. Like if you're familiar with the animal itself, you're kind of like, I think what was the what was the comparison I heard made? This fucking thing is not an anaconda. It's Usain Bolt. Actually, it's Michael Johnson in a snake suit. Because Usain Bolt wasn't a thing back then, but it was Michael Johnson in a snake suit because the thing was fast as fuck. But that's what I love about giant animal horror. And I'm so glad that the late 90s we saw a resurgence, because we hadn't seen really good giant animal horror since like the 80s.
No.
Since like the early 80s.
Well, I mean,
like Prophecy and...
It's in 75 with Jaws.
75, Jaws there. But I mean, Prophecy was one about a giant killer bear. It was like a mutated bear. But Prophecy went under the radar. That was one of the lesser known ones. That was because Chernobyl bear is pretty much what that was. But unfortunately, that was kind of where it degraded. But the last real big major blockbuster was Jaws as far as giant animal horror goes. And I love this because Anacondas was there. Anacondas didn't really rely on the comedy, but that's what I think made this so successful, was because there was a good solid dose of comedy in Lake Placid, which took the whole thing. It's like, yeah, it's a giant crocodile. It's fucking eating people. It's ripping people in half. But fuck, Betty White is in it. She's funny as shit. She's salty as fuck. She's salty as fuck. And...
Oh, man. You're not going to come here and tell me what the fuck to do with my fucking crocodile. Fucking piece of shit.
And Oliver Platt was funny as shit. And I love Brendan Gleeson in anything I see him in. And Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman was always fun to watch.
You're talking about the best president we've ever had.
The best president we've ever had. That's goddamn right.
Yeah, but you're not wrong. I mean, you go back to the 70s and like the mid 70s, early 80s, and you get all sorts of shit. Like you were talking about Prophecy. There was another one called Grizzly that was about bears. But like bees.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Killer bees, the swarm, the bees, all that all came out in the 70s. It was like everybody's so fucking scared of bees. And then ants, like you said.
Nature be scary.
Damn, nature, you scary. But yeah, you got Jaws, the original Piranha, like all this big shit, and then nothing for a while.
Oh, fucking Piranha. Oh.
Yeah.
No, Piranha 2 where they fly.
Yeah, but then you get that big gap and shit. You don't see anything until the 90s. Yep. You said like Arachnophobia or Eight-Legged Freaks was actually closer to this movie, to Lake Placid. But it came back strong, and it's still real. You got Birdemic, that's pretty new.
I can't believe you mentioned that.
I wasn't gonna go there, like at all. But you're right, because it kind of has it's kind of like this wave, because you have like the nuclear horror films of the 50s, so you have like them and stuff like that, and then it kind of goes away. Then you have this in the 70s with Jaws, and I think with Anaconda, it proved that it was marketable. Though Anaconda obviously has its flaws as a movie, it proved it was marketable because it was still successful. And Lake Placid was like, what if we kind of dialed the seriousness back just a little bit, like just enough, because it knew exactly what it was. This is going to be a fun. It's going to be a fun horror movie. I remember I saw the trailer when it came out, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be that good. It's going to be whatever. And then I saw it on VHS. I'm like, this is amazing. It's just a fun movie. It knew exactly what it was.
Hey, when that fucking crocodile comes out of that water and snatches that goddamn bear, and I was like, holy shit! Because I got to see that in theaters, and you do not expect it.
No.
Because everybody's like, oh shit, there's a fucking grizzly bear, and the Rangers all doing their thing, trying to to keep it away from the civilians, and then all of a sudden, boom! 30-foot crocodile snatches that bear dead, and look on his face like, what the fuck?
I was not.
I like how, like, when you go in and you look up like the types of natural horror movies and stuff, and it's just like it lists them off. It's like alligator, mutated alligator. For Lake Placid, it was abnormally large saltwater crocodile.
Saltwater crocodile.
You don't say. Abnormally
large.
But then, hey, we're talking about Lake Placid. I was looking into some of this stuff, and in 2007 there was 4 other crocodile films. It was Blackwater, Croc, Primeval, and Rogue were all giant croc movies.
I know. Was it Primeval? I think it was. Was it Primeval or Rogue was actually based on a real?
Primeval. That was Gustav the crocodile.
Yeah, who's got like 300 kills to his name or something like that.
Yeah, but then I recently
I saw
watched
pictures of that fucker.
Crawl. That one came out last year.
Oh God, don't mention Crawl to me.
J Hill has a personal feelings for that movie.
There was a lot of like tension in that one.
Okay. No, I don't have anything to say about Crawl. I know it was a decent film. It got decent reviews. It was a good little thriller. I mean, for what it was, but I'm pissed because I don't need to go into details. Eugene knows the story. He knows, there are other people out there who know the story. But I'm just upset that that idea made it to theaters. Yeah, I'm pissed. I'm pissed at Crawl. Hey, how about this? Listeners, if you want to know the story behind why I am pissed at the movie Crawl, email us at weekendhorror@gmail.com, and I will personally tell you the story as to why I'm pissed off. I will go from beginning to end, and I will tell you.
Like,
I'm super hoping the producers from Crawl email you.
Hey,
oh
what's
my
up,
God,
dog?
I'm gonna create a letter. I'm gonna have this letter that I'm just gonna copy and paste to everybody who writes. So I'm gonna write it all out, and I will copy and paste it, and I'll send it to whoever asks, "Why do you hate Crawl?" Because it's not that I hate the movie. It's just I'm pissed off at the fucking film, and there's a big long story behind there. It's too long for this show. However, what Crawl did not have was the effects of Stan Winston.
Oh yes,
who fucking made the 30-foot gator, the 30-foot crocodile. I keep wanting to call it a goddamn alligator. Because I keep thinking back to that 80, I think it was the early 80s or late 70s one, alligator, about the alligator flushed down the toilet and then turns into a giant alligator in the sewers. Yeah. But yes, Stan Winston, who created the 30-foot fucking crocodile for this movie.
So Stan Winston, for those of you who don't know, he's a visual effects artist who does makeup, prosthetics, visual effects. I mean, he is the man. You have seen his work. He is a 4-time Oscar winning. He did the movie Aliens, which he won for. He also won for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and he won also for Jurassic Park. So you're talking about Aliens, Terminator, Jurassic Park, Batman Returns, Edward Scissorhands. He did both Predator 1 and Predator 2. He did The Thing. And
Iron Man. He worked on Iron Man.
Yeah, he worked on Iron Man and Big Fish. And I mean, even fun stuff. He worked on Avatar. He worked on Don't Mess with the Zohan. Just to throw that in there.
Okay.
Yeah, just to throw that in there. And so also War of the Worlds.
We have him coming up. He worked on Pumpkinhead. He designed the Pumpkinhead monster.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And Pumpkin, I throw that out there because Pumpkinhead is coming up on our next Bloodbath debate. But yeah, he worked on that one too.
Yeah, I mean he is somebody who he has influenced any visual effects artist. He has influenced anybody into filmmaking and just us, our childhood, because we grew up. There's a reason why Jurassic Park looks so good and why Terminator 2, why the effects, I watched Terminator 2 like a month ago and the effects still hold up to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, just he's a genius. He is a man ahead of its time. And
it's a shame. He passed away 2010?
Yeah, he passed away June 15th, 2008.
2008. That was right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, shortly after working on Iron Man with Jon Favreau on it. But I mean, this is the career that like people dream of.
Amazing, dude. Gave pretty much everything that inspired us as actors, as filmmakers. He goes up there with Ray Harryhausen because Ray Harryhausen captured us as children, and Stan Winston's work pretty much it showed us where you could really take it beyond the level of just dynamation, where he went into prosthetics, he went into animatronics, into full-fledged puppeteering, designing some of the monsters that we grew up with, the Predator, the Aliens, the Terminator himself. Worked with Cameron a lot, worked with tons of directors, pretty much virtually every single director, major A-list director out there. we pretty much grew up alongside him.
I mean, we really did. When you're the guy that Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, Tim Burton, James Cameron, John Carpenter, Jon Favreau, and a bunch of others, when you're the guy that all those directors go to, you've made it.
You know,
you are the best.
So wild. But, you know, as far as it goes, the crocodile on this I thought looked sweet. They pretty much made a 30-foot crocodile that could be in the water. And I thought was one of the most impressive things because pretty much every crocodile movie or every large alligator movie or large reptiles, they either CGI, and around this time they were heavily using CGI. Like the anacondas were all CGI.
What?
But either before that they were.
I did. I had no idea.
Oh, you spoiled it for me. But they were either CGI, which like they were in Anacondas, or in movies like Alligator 2, The Mutation, or Prophecies like this. Oh, actually, you know, they were puppets. But you know, at the time, even the time they might have been scary, but you could tell they're definitely puppets. Whereas Stan Winston, known for his, for incredible work, especially detailed work, this legit looked like a 30-foot fucking crocodile. I mean, spared no expense. So I believed in those moments like this. That I still love that scene when Oliver Platt is in the water and the fucking thing like rolls up on him like nose to nose, and they do that overhead shot. And I thought it was so brilliant because you could have just kept it right there with you see the head of the animal is just there, is like right there. It's like holy fuck, and then he's in the water. And he's like so small, but then they do that big overhead shot just to show how goddamn big this thing was. And it, the detail right there, it was like holy shit, suspension of disbelief, just amazing fucking work. So, what's interesting is that Lake Placid did give birth to like 5 sequels, amazingly, like 5 made-for-TV sequels.
They started the sequels at the end of the first movie. They're like, hey, guess what? It ain't the only one.
Yes. So. You know, Lake Placid 2, and then so on and so forth. But, ultimately, and it was almost like it was planned, because Anacondas also got sequels. So Anaconda, then Anacondas, Hunt for the Blood Orchid, and so on and so forth. But eventually the two came head-to-head. Lake Placid versus Anaconda. Why they're calling the alligator Lake Placid, I don't fucking know. But, I called an alligator again. God damn it. Crocodile. Lake Placid versus Anaconda. This movie actually happened, where the snake fought the gator, or the croc.
What?
So I want to ask the audience: you didn't see this?
No, is that a thing?
No, I haven't.
Yes, it's a fucking thing.
I haven't seen it either.
Holy
dude, the cover of the cover of the one sheet was like was the crocodile with a girl half hanging out of its mouth, wrapped up. And they wrapped up by an anaconda as the anaconda is coming around to strike it.
It was a TV show. It was a TV movie.
I think it was sci-fi. I think it was straight to sci-fi.
Like Placid versus Anaconda. There's a fucking snake with a half a balloon hanging out.
I can't believe you're just now hearing about this.
Oh my god. Fucking crocodile. Sorry.
Guess what I'm watching later?
Yeah, no shit.
Let's
see.
It's so
Voodoo.
Watch that shit. You have got to.
3.2 out of 10 on IMDb.
Sci-fi went to fucking town on these movies, especially when they started, taking the crocodile out of the water and having it run around. It's so obviously CGI. It's sci-fi CGI is what it is.
Fuck off, Robert Englund is in this. Robert Englund is in this. This is great.
It's goofy fucking fun. They don't take themselves seriously at all. But eventually, the anaconda and the Lake Placid crocodile eventually come, to fight to the death. So I want to ask the audience, this sounds so stupid. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the Lake Placid crocodiles or the anacondas? I would say which one was scarier, because I don't know if they were really that scary. Or maybe they do. Maybe crocodiles. Maybe caimans scare you more than snakes do. Maybe snakes scare you more than caimans do. But I'd like to know, Lake Placid or anaconda? Which one did you prefer? Hit us up at weekendhorror@gmail.com.
Some restrictions apply. See store for details.
Results may vary. So, we're gonna take a swim.
I see what you did there.
Get the fuck out.
We're gonna take a swim out of the goofy, and take it a little bit more. Alex, you got something a little bit more serious on hand.
I guess if you could call anything made, Canadian serious.
That's old.
No, I'm just fucking with you, eh? I hail from the north. Don't worry. But yeah, we can get a little down and dark, I guess. This is a horror podcast after all. We're gonna go to July 18th, 1980, a film called Prom Night, directed by Paul Lynch, written by William Gray, starring a very unknown cast. Jamie Lee Curtis, Leslie Nielsen. Nobody really super known. Casey Stevens, Eddie Benton, Michael Tough, Robert Silverman was in this. Robert Silverman is by far one of my favorite actors in this movie. He played Mr. Sykes, like the little dude that just stayed off to the corner and was like, "Hey, by the way, killer's still on the loose." But he was cast 5 times by David Cronenberg, and played in the Friday the 13th series on a few episodes, and played in Jason X.
He was the school janitor.
The groundskeeper, the janitor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And yeah, but he played like my take on his character in this movie, I felt like he should have been a much bigger role, because he's like, "Hey, by the way, the killer's still on the loose," and then they're like, "Okay, get out of here, crazy dude, you had too much to drink." And that was it.
He was the doomsayer.
Huh?
He was the doomsayer.
Yeah.
He was the doomsayer, like in Cabin in the Woods. There's always "Don't go in there, kids. It's haunted."
Yeah, but they really just brushed over.
Do you know what happened out there?
Do you know what happened? I do. I was there and I survived.
For once, I want to see a movie. For once, I want to see a movie where they're like, "Kids, don't go in there," and they're like, we should probably take his advice, and they turn around and walk away and never approach the door,
and then get hit by a car.
The end.
Ain't nobody been out there since the war. Which war was that? Goddamn well which war. Was that the one with some guys in gray and others in blue, brothers fighting against I'm sorry. It suddenly reminded me of the Cabin in the Woods. I fucking love that scene. It's just the old the creepy guy who's trying to tell him to go away.
Don't go.
But yes.
Prom Night.
But yes.
Definitely a prominent, one of the first, if not the first, original OG slasher film. This brought, it's your typical group of teenagers did something stupid as kids, and it came back and bit them in the ass later in life. Very typical revenge slasher film, but also like the kind of first one of the 80s, starting off a whole situation.
Yeah, this is the film that actually sets up the trope that we see in slashers from here on out, because you have like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you had Halloween that both came out before then, but there really wasn't that much established tropes. You would have something like The Final Girl, but like that was really about it. This is the first film where you have you have the high school kids and they do something bad when they're younger, and the kid goes out the window, and then years upon years later, it comes back and he seeks revenge as he's going through killing and slashing throats and stuff like that. And it's one of those films that it's not talked about as much as Halloween, Friday the 13th, and so forth. But this is the film that actually solidified that. Of it, and even obviously inspiration from things such as like Scream with like the phone calls and stuff like that. There's so many different nuances and different tropes that really solidified this is how you're going to do a slasher film.
Oh, definitely. It was. I've always looked at Prom Night because there were movies that came before it. Like Friday the 13th came before Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but given that slasher films or even splatter films, the tropes of which were still being kind of fleshed out, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th, and then shortly then after this one, the very next year you'd have The Burning, and then after that you'd have Nightmare on Elm Street, and then so on and so forth. All the ones that came along that, like April Fool's Day and Happy Birthday to Me and stuff like that. But it was Prom Night which unfortunately I've always thought it was kind of overshadowed by the surprise success of Friday the 13th, because that movie exploded so big that this one came out later, only a few months after that. And so this was in July, and then what was it? Remind me, Friday the 13th, the original one, came out in
I thought it was like in
June?
May.
May? I think it was May. It was May 1980. I'm gonna get so much heat for
Yeah,
forgetting
it
that.
was May 9th.
May 9th,
Yeah.
that's right. And so that came out in May. This comes out 2 months later and is completely overshadowed by Friday the 13th. But what Prom Night did better, number one, it had Jamie Lee Curtis in it. And it was only her third film. But it did, in my eyes, did everything right. And left, it solidified everything that worked and everything that would define the slasher genre from that point on. Because Friday the 13th Part 2, and then Nightmare on Elm Street, everything that came after it would take from these tropes. And it was so masterfully balanced. And it was a shame that the perfect slasher would be overshadowed by Friday the 13th. I love Friday the 13th. I'm a huge Jason fan. He's my number one slasher guy. But Prom Night was so influential as far as the effect that it would have on the genre, because it brought everything into focus.
It sounds more to me like...
In essence...
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go. I'm good. What were you saying?
You're just geeking out over this movie. You say it did everything perfect. But I think maybe your bias is just your crush on Jamie Lee Curtis.
You're goddamn right I've got a crush on Jamie Lee Curtis.
She's earned that crush.
She has earned that crush. For everything from The Fog to the True Lies. True Lies. All the way to today, to the new Halloween film.
Oh, yeah?
Jamie Lee Curtis has earned that.
You just been
Fish Called Wanda? Goddamn right.
been sniffing that tail her whole career, huh?
Well, now she'll never be on our podcast.
Hey, to be completely honest with you, though, this movie, like, rewatching it, because this is something that was just, I mean, it was 1980, so still kind of popped up in my life when I was younger, but rewatching it, I'd have to disagree. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, definitely, and you got, Leslie Nielsen, in there, which helps, but, like, I feel like it's really rushed. I feel like they could have spent more time on the story because they took away the gore of the film. It's not like your typical splatter film. This is like the first time that it's really been. It should have been more about the story, because there was a lot less gore in this. And the kills, they weren't super over the top. They had plenty of time to like go into it, but they really kind of rushed things, like the relationships between the characters and stuff. So I felt like it could have been done a lot better. It wasn't terrible, but it was hard to watch at some points, because it's like, man, now I don't know anything about this situation. And then I felt it was kind of obvious at the end, like, the big reveal was...
Well, you do smoke a lot of weed.
Wow.
Damn. Don't take it personal.
I honestly think that Prom Night was lightning in a bottle. That it is a legitimate slasher film without any splatter tropes or gore tropes or anything of that nature. Obviously, gore hounds would not be attracted to Prom Night, because the focus was on the storytelling. The focus was on the story. The focus on the revenge motif of the killer, and how the killer is not going for the ultimate splatter flick. The killer's going for revenge. So the objective is to kill his opponents, is to kill his targets, not to Texas Chainsaw Massacre their entrails all over the place and then wear their fucking faces everywhere or some shit like that. The killer was not a sadist. The killer was simply trying to, complete his mission of revenge. Oh, I may have given it away there. But anyway, but ultimately the storyline is well balanced. And sorry about that. That was an Amber Alert.
Somebody's stealing kids again.
Damn it.
Fucking crazy. So ultimately, it's very well balanced between the violence, which was still there. Fucking Lou gets his head chopped off on stage.
I will admit that was like,
taking pictures.
Okay.
Oh my god! For everybody, everybody takes off. So girls getting, guys driving off cliffs. When Slick drove off the fucking cliff.
Giant explosion after that 10-foot fucking drop.
I love how the van starts exploding before it even hits anything. Like, it goes off and explodes in midair.
Damn it! I thought for sure he was going to get away.
But I mean, just like in that scenario, they were smoking weed before that went down. And then before that, in the what was it, in the dressing room, or in the when the two were making out, but they like Kelly. What was it? Was it Kelly? Yeah, Kelly like refuses to have sex with him with Drew. Okay,
Don't touch
but he's
me.
still going out. But that the whole thing, having sex, smoking weed, these tropes we've seen would establish pretty much the genre from there on, and the balance between violence and story and effects and getting across just a perfect 1-2-3 act balance. We consider it formulaic today, but I don't think it was then, and I think it was lightning in a bottle at the time. And and I don't think I know that big time horror fans love the movie. I don't think it gets the love that it deserves.
Well, also at the same time, if you're looking for an influential movie or something, a formula that you want to follow, you don't want to pick a super big movie because everybody sees that. If you're going to do a giant shark in the water, people are going to go, oh, well, that's going to be Jaws. You can't follow that. So if you're looking for a formula to say do a slasher film, you're going to pick one that you like, but that isn't as, say, well known or is something like that. So maybe that's one of the reasons why it was so influential, because you'll have all these directors that obviously the directors and the horror fans are going to go see it when it came out and obviously pick up on certain things and like certain aspects of it, but it's not something that the mainstream may not have seen, so they're not going to make that connection.
Point taken. I can see that.
I guess looking back at my first original comment about the story and stuff, and then you talked about how it could have been like the first time that they've tried stuff like that. That makes sense. I guess like because I've seen it over and over, it is formulaic. I've seen that formula, I guess, going back and watching it now. It wouldn't be... It's like, oh, well, I know exactly what's going to happen, but that's only because they've like perfected the formula. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I will retract maybe a little bit on my feelings. Look at that. You changed a mind.
It's interesting because, and one thing that I got, because going back over this film and looking at the critical reception to the movie, it was not lambasted like Friday the 13th was. Or Texas, because critics hated Friday the 13th. I believe it was Siskel and Ebert just fucking destroyed Roger Ebert just fucking hated Friday the 13th when it first came out, just like he hated The Thing. But in this regards, the people talked about, oh, it's overly violent. Oh, it's so the gore is so and people were doing that. But this one, Prom Night, was the first one to really bring up an issue with violence against women, because the guys all die pretty quickly.
Yeah, because they were all
in the movie, but the girls all have protracted deaths, which I think resonated with some critics. So I think this was the first. Because I don't remember many critics talking about it as a major subject, other than starting from Prom Night, and then they began to talk about it more and more because the subject had been broached. But you didn't really hear about this in Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th was, oh, it's so horrible. Everybody just dies, just splatter, gross. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It didn't matter who was fucking dying; they're all getting fucking chopped up into bits. The question is who was going to survive. Was that whole thing? Halloween. It was. There was only one target. Michael killed a couple people, but his target was Jamie Lee Curtis's character. So that was it. It was just the final girl versus the boogeyman. Whereas in this one, you're dispatching many characters, and people took issue with the excessive violence against females.
I'm kind of curious if, obviously this film isn't that gory, but maybe some small influence from like the video nasties that are known to be extremely violent against women. Maybe there's some influence, because you had the video nasties in the 70s. Maybe there's something about that kind of influenced it. That it was like, hey, we remember the female kills more than we remember the male kills, so let's focus on that more.
That's interesting.
You also got to look at the times too, though, and like I don't want to call out all these boomers that were in high school or in that time around the 80s, but like I was watching this film, and that was like you're talking about violence against women. That's something that you notice in this. You also know, even if you watch like Dazed and Confused, stuff like that, where they portray that time period, it's something that was an issue back then, like in the 50s when it was like okay to smack your wife around. It was like that's always been like okay in that time, and that, it was all right for the man to be, not oppressive, maybe oppressive over their woman and keep them in line. And that's, you see that a lot in this movie. And that, I guess that bothered the crap out of me watching that now, because that shit wouldn't fly now. You can't act like that anymore. You can't be like, go get me a sandwich or whatever, or come over here and you're gonna have sex with me, and then if you don't, you're a whore, kind of thing. And then like you're talking about, yeah, they spent a lot of time killing the women in this movie. It was a lot of chasing down. Shoot, I forgot her name in the movie. But that one girl, the blonde chick, she like got chased for like ever, and then finally was like, brutally murdered. But yeah, I guess I don't know.
And that's another good point, because most films in general are made for men, and they have the men's.
Just talk about this.
Yeah, it's a man's perspective. And so maybe something like that. It's like, oh, well, we want to see more of that. We want to see the woman running around, because you're right. We're talking 1980. It's a different time period. A husband smacking his wife around, though it's obviously wrong on every level, but was something that was more acceptable. Society. Yeah, it was accepted in society at that time in the 50s and 60s. So it could have been the movie catering more towards men.
Oh, by the way, it was Wendy that he was chasing.
Wendy, yeah, that's her name.
Oh, Wendy, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Wendy who gets dispatched with the axe.
Eddie Benton. Yeah, because I mean, like, he like chases her down. It's obvious. But, is that because of like his revenge? Is that because he's so mad? Is it actually because, it's like, is he more brutal towards the women on purpose? Is it just the time period? It's real hard to tell. And especially now when we're more conscious of those things, and you look back, it's like, you don't know what they were thinking. Everything that was so normal, the normalcy of things. That's what we're stirring up right now in the world, is like, okay, let's take a look at what we call normal, and do we still feel good about all of it? So it's like,
But and here's another interesting point, and we tend, in situations like that, we tend to root for women more. We tend to naturally be more compassionate towards women. So it also could have been the movie going, you're not going to care if a man is running from the killer, but you will care if a woman's running from it. So that's why we want to prolong that. So, I mean, there's several different takes and angles and stuff like that we can go with.
And that even comes down to like a final girl type situation too, where it's like, you make them seem like they're going to survive, and then you kill them off, because then you have, okay, then it comes down to the last girl. Well, it seems like she's going to survive, but she's going to get killed off because of, everybody else that seemed like they were going to stay alive got killed off. And then you get to the final girl, and then she makes it. And then it's like, whoa, my God, I can't believe there was that release or that relief at the end. And so, it could be geared towards that as well, it's...
Until you got around to Friday the 13th Part 2. And the final girl of the previous one got smoked in the first few minutes.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that brings up... I don't know. I guess we kind of talked about this a little, and I'd still like to know, audience, what do you think about violence against women in horror? Is it a good trope? Is it something that we can, like, get behind because of the things we talked about? Sympathizers, can you sympathize with women more than men, Or is it sexist? Or we can't do that anymore? 2020, erase all the things. I don't know, let us know. weekenhorror@gmail.com. Hey, Eugene, why don't you take us to a classic?
All right. This is one of the best films ever made. I mean, not just horror film, but period. I grew up watching this film. It's just one of the best. It has one of the best casts. It's just... it's just incredible. I'm so glad I'm the one. Hang on a minute. Okay, all right. It was
stretch out.
Yeah. I got. Okay, all right. All right. Released July 18th, 1986. We have the sequel, Aliens, directed by directed by James Cameron himself, starring Sigourney Weaver, Michael Bellham, Paul Reisner, Lance Henderson.
Sorry. I got Michael.
Oh,
Bay.
Michael Bay. Sorry,
Michael
Bean. Michael Bean. Paul Reisner, Lance Hendrickson, Bill Paxton, and Carrie Henn. And I mean, if just in case you're the 1% of the population that's never seen this movie, basically this company, Weyland-Yutani, sets up a colony on a planet, and then they lose signal, so they take Ellen Ripley and a group of Marines to go investigate what is going on this planet.
Let's go, Ripley.
At this time, it's war.
Oh man, I love the late 80s.
Nothing was better. I mean, when this came up, obviously we were going to talk about it because this was on the schedule, and I was like, "There's no fucking way we're getting out of here without talking about aliens." But what could be honestly, what could be said about this movie that has not been talked about before? It is a seminal film. It is one of the greatest sci-fi horror action films ever made. Because obviously, predominantly, Alien was a horror film, was a horror sci-fi film. That was this one. Obviously, James Cameron comes in. He's going to up the action. It's going to be absolutely intense. Considering he really had something he needed to prove, because he jumped on this one. I think what was it? So I mean, from the guy who got his start with Piranha 2, that's where he started, to go from Piranha 2 to the fucking Terminator. And from Terminator to Aliens, this was Cameron in his early days when he was definitely trying to establish himself as a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood.
And he fucking established himself.
And he established himself. Yes. I mean, what could be else said? So what I want to do instead of going into, there's so many things everybody knows about Aliens. Virtually everyone knows every single thing about this movie. So I just wanted to take a second. We all remember seeing it the first time. This movie was affecting. Okay, there was something. So I wanted to go around. Wanted to ask Alex. I wanted to ask you, Eugene. And I also want to ask the audience as soon as we talk about it. What was, when you first saw this movie? What's the one scene in this movie that fucking sticks with you to this day? And I'm talking like Jurassic Park, the first time you see the Brachiosaur. That moment sticks with me.
Yeah,
exactly. That sticks with me every single time. You take out all the rest of it, it's always seeing that first dino, like, holy shit, it's a fucking Brachiosaur. Aliens. You pop it in there, Ellen Ripley is back, whatever. What was it about Aliens, Alex, that stuck? What is it, the scene that sticks with you the most?
See, mine's not going to be some epic, I was totally coherent to what was going on scene, though, because when I saw it for the first time, I think I was like 7, 8, no, probably 8 or 9. And it was on the TV, the big ass fucking 6 fucking foot deep, old ass fucking tube TV. And my dad was watching it. And my dad was watching
VHS?
it. Yeah, fucking, it was probably, actually, you know what? It was definitely on VHS. But yeah, no, I walked into the room, my dad was watching it, and I came around, and from my memory, one of the aliens was climbing up the side of like a wall, getting shot at, and that's when I walked in and I first saw the alien for the very first time. And my dad kind of looked at me, looked at the TV, then looked at me again, and kind of shrugged a little and was like, okay.
He saw your innocence fly the fuck away.
So that's where it all started.
Well, he's already seen the fucking alien getting fucking shot in the face screaming. So, like, might as well just, let him fucking finish this one off. And so that was the first, I watched it from that point. I couldn't even tell you what point in the movie it was from my little kid memory. I just remember the alien was climbing up a wall and getting shot at, and then I think it was probably like another 45 minutes of the movie from that point on. But I'll remember the TV, the entertainment center, the exact color of the scene, the couch that we had, because it was from that point on, I went and later on in life, obviously, maybe a year and a half, I started watching the other ones. But
you wouldn't expect it. That is how impressive this movie is, because it literally becomes you remember exactly where you were.
I remember this.
Where were you when you saw where were you when you saw Aliens first? Eugene, what was the scene that still resonates with you from when you first saw this film? You see this and it's that one scene.
So it was, I actually saw Aliens before I saw the first one. And so this is the same thing. I think I was maybe I was definitely in elementary school. So maybe like 8, 9, 10, something like that. And it was my parents never held anything back, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna watch this. And it was the scene that captivated me was the part where shit hits the fan. We have the Marines that are in the like, it's like the medical bay or something like that, and they're holding up the sensor, and it's like, no, they're inside the perimeter. They're inside. It's like beep 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 beep. No, they're inside. I can't see him. You have to be upside down. And then when I think it was either Hicks or it was Bill Paxton's character that looks up at the ceiling, and then he goes up and lifts up the ceiling tile, and it's just like, and all of a sudden you see them crawling. It's like, oh shit. They figured it out because
it's reading right, man. Look,
what do you mean they cut the power to animals?
dude. Okay, we gotta give props to Bill Paxton, because his birthday was a little bit ago. But when he finally finds his face, like, oh come on, motherfucker, you want some too? Come on, I was like, fuck yes. I am telling you, okay, I remember seeing it in bits and pieces, but the scene that resonated with me, that solidified in my mind the epicness of this movie, was when it was towards the end. All the action is done, and I think it was the first time probably watching movies I'd ever seen this before, where I ever experienced it as a film guy. I was still a child, I was young, but I remember distinctly the movie is done. And they've escaped, and then the place is blown up, and it's over. Okay, they're on the deck, and Ripley is talking. And of course, I don't get the character dynamics. I don't understand. I just know that Ripley and Bishop are talking. Okay, the moment when he was like, when he got him out. Oh,
yeah.
Boom!
Yeah.
The alien queen's tail goes clean through his ass, and he's spraying like white shit all over the place. And I was kind of like, and then it suddenly dawns on me, he's not human. Like, because you don't really see it from that point. Not like in the first film, like Ash. Because they actually make mention of them, and I probably had forgotten it. I was a child. I had forgotten that he was not human. And then all of a sudden, she picks him up and the tail rips out, and she rips that fucker in half and throws him into... I was like, God, that moment right there when Bishop gets shredded and cast aside, like, and he's just finished this whole sequence of being a badass, going in the tunnel, inching his way through the tunnel, manually piloting in the drop ship, getting everyone on board, saving Ripley's life, like getting everybody out there and being the hero of the day, and then boom, fuck you, Bishop, you ain't shit.
Oh damn it!
And I was like, fuck, just the because you don't see it coming, and for a kid, you think the action is over, the big boom, the monster's gone, and I was like, no, the monster's not gone. We still have a power loader that we need to get into to mess this bitch up. but the moment that tail goes clean through his ass,
fuck,
and hauls him up, and she just whoop, I was like, that will stick. That sticks with me every time I get to that scene of the movie. It's like it takes me right back. I think I was probably, this came out in '86. I'm willing to bet I was probably 7, maybe 8 when I saw this the first time.
Well, because you watch the movie and you're like, the rescue happens. You're like, man, this movie's badass. I wish there was like 20 more minutes in this movie. All of a sudden, tail goes through, and you're just like, fuck yes.
So fucking amazing.
It's so good.
And I want to ask the audience, and you guys can respond to this. This is not our normal question at the end, but I do want to include you guys in this. Remembering Aliens. 1986, this movie came out, so 2016, almost coming. Here in a few years, will be 40 years old. What was the scene that got you? That you all will always remember, that when you think of the movie Aliens, this scene pops in your fucking head. We want to know. Hit us up. Let us know. weekendhorror@gmail.com. But one thing that can be said about this movie is its effect on pop culture.
Oh, yeah.
The resonating effect of, and not even just the first one, but this one. It was this 1986 version.
Like this one in between. James Cameron has a way of creating cultural phenomenons.
You don't say. For some reason, aliens too. Fucking. Well, I guess Avatar's not. Well, no, they would be like aliens, huh? Yeah.
I mean, you saw big changes in because from before Alien, I would say before Ridley Scott's Alien, before he got H.R. Giger in there, and to just to kind of inspire the design of the alien.
What do you mean, E.T.?
But before that, aliens were pretty they're rather simple. They weren't as complex or as designed to a point to elicit fear in that nature. They were typically amalgams of things that are normal looking to people. They either had like big heads, big eyes, or maybe no mouth and no nose, or long limbs. They were creepy, but they weren't designed in a way to elicit a fear like this one. And the alien design itself was so iconic, and it has inspired creators to go further and to push boundaries in the depiction of extraterrestrial life, to push it further and further and further, and stuff like that. And then of course the concept of the colonial marines and
the colonial marines. Where have we seen those before?
Al Matthews himself, the guy who played Sergeant Apone. I mean, we wouldn't have. I think if it weren't for this movie, we wouldn't have the movie. We wouldn't have the video game series Halo.
Yeah, because that was an influence.
I guess that's right up there with, like, when I think about aliens, I think about Independence Day.
See, like that. And you see the tentacles and shit. And,
yeah.
That we see that inspiration along those lines. They make tweaks and they make them smarter, they make them bigger, they make them faster. But the reality of it is, it changed the scope of creature design from going forward. And then, of course, concepts. I mean, we wouldn't have Paul Verhoeven would have never adapted Starship Troopers were it not for Aliens. And it's interesting because James Cameron had all the actors read Starship Troopers in preparation for the role as Colonial Marines. So you have and then of course concepts like Weyland-Yutani, the big evil corporations that are overseeing things. That gets cemented in the kind of public mindset where it's the company, whereas in an Alien it was just like Weyland-Yutani wasn't really expounded upon. It was Aliens that solidified, though, this is an evil corporation that's putting its profits ahead of anything else, so on and so forth. So we get all of these ideas that get cemented into the kind of societal mindset, or the cultural mindset, and inspired both writers and filmmakers and everything from that point on.
Well, because with aliens you had before then, they were either in spaceships like War of the Worlds, or there can be either humanoid, so they're either like not that scary, or if they were kind of scary, they weren't very sophisticated.
Like Star Trek.
Yeah, like Star Trek. And this is something that you get something that is truly terrifying looking. Either way, it kills you, it's going to be bad, because it's either going to rip you apart or it's going to impregnate you and burst out of your chest. And the fact that it's intelligent. And that, I think that's another thing when I was talking about the scene earlier, because throughout the movie, they probe where the Marines are for weaknesses. And then
when they're testing the tunnels with the turrets.
Yeah, they're testing them until they actually find a way in. And so you get something that is relentless. You can't reason with it. You're going to die horribly, and it will not stop. It's terrifying.
That sounds like a really shitty fucking Thursday, man.
Fuck. And I will always go back to this movie. I'm actually quite proud. I own this movie on VHS. Back when I was young and I was buying all kinds of shit that I didn't need to be buying, the Alien quadrilogy on VHS was one thing that I bought. So Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, which I still love. I love Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. All four of those I have them on VHS, and I have them in the original box set. But I love this. I love this fucking movie. I don't think there's a person out there who could say anything. And the things that Cameron overcame when he was working overseas, because he was shooting at Pinewood, and it was encountering all these difficulties because he was shooting at Pinewood. There was the crew was pretty much all English, and it was pretty much an English production, but none of the actors were English, which really pissed off the crew. Because they felt it was disrespectful, like this upstart American, we have no idea who he is. He's going to come over here to, the legendary Pinewood Studios in England and shoot and use nothing but American actors. Fuck you. So they had a problem with it. So they were constantly taking tea time right in the middle of important scenes, or they would basically just fuck off or whatever, or just not do their jobs. And Cameron had to overcome all this shit. But I think this is a really cool story and something that any burgeoning filmmaker can do. One thing that Cameron did is that he was having all these difficulties with the English crew when he was shooting out there. And so one night, and if you consider the timing, because at this point when he was shooting Aliens, Terminator had not come out yet. So what Cameron did is that one night during shooting, in order to kind of bring people together, to camaraderie, to kind of like, he set up a screening for everyone involved with Aliens to watch the Terminator. And accomplish two tasks. One, bring everybody together. We see a cool ass movie and we all enjoy it. And now we're all happy. And two, to kind of show the European or the English crew that he knew what the fuck he was doing.
Yes.
Look, we got this.
I made this movie. I know what I'm fucking doing. And unfortunately, not all of them showed up. But the ones that did showed up fundamentally changed their opinion of the man. And he was able to get Aliens done. And he said, I think he said in interviews, it was the film that almost broke him, but he got it done. And the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what the fuck he's doing, and he's able to create a classic. And I love the story where they're in post-production, and Cameron actually wanted the guns to sound different. He wanted them to sound futuristic, and he wanted them to sound like something that no one's ever heard before. So they took the gunshots and they ran it through a flanger, which is a type of a guitar type of effect.
Wow.
Yeah. So they actually ran it through a flanger and mixed it in a certain way that he wanted a sound that no one would ever be able to copy, and he got it. Because if you sound anything like that, even today, people was like, oh, it's an Alien machine gun ripoff.
Nice, because he did not, that's right, because he did not replicate the sounds of the plasma rifles from Terminator.
Yeah.
Because those had there's more of an energy discharge sound with those.
He wanted to go bwang bwang instead of bang bang.
That is interesting. That's just innovative. I mean, come on. I mean, I've heard the guy is a complete total monster to work with. But there was, Bill Paxton kept working for him, so there must have been something good about Cameron. But he had
a fuckload of money.
Well, okay, no, I'm sorry. When he made this film, he did not have a fuckload of money.
No,
yet,
but he blew money like he had a fuckload of money.
Because the only reason he got Piranha 2 is because he impressed Roger Corman with his quick thinking as far as special effects goes. And then he got Piranha 2, and come on, it's Piranha 2.
I mean, come on, it's fine.
But then he got Terminator, and Terminator had not yet released, and he was already shooting Aliens. I mean, Terminator was together. It was final cut. It was in the can, but it had not released to theaters yet, and he was already back on set shooting Aliens. So he didn't have Cameron money. He didn't have, I'm gonna invent my own fucking camera system to shoot a movie because this technology is just too slow for me.
Not yet.
He didn't have that kind of fucking money yet.
Yeah.
He didn't have Titanic dollars yet.
Yeah, where he's like, hey, this shot right here cost us $1 million. And he's like, that's wrong. But it cost us $1 million. Yeah, but it's still wrong.
Oh, Cameron, grossing billions.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what he's doing. I mean, you're right. Every story I've heard that he's a dick on set and he could be a nightmare to work with and all the other kind of stuff. But when you create as many blockbusters as he has, yes, sir. Whatever you need me to do, sir. Yes, right. You want to spit in my coffee? Yes, spit in my coffee. Throw it in my face. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
There seems to be, it's much like Kubrick, much like Stanley Kubrick, who was notoriously... he was a notorious perfectionist and was just a monster on set. Obviously the tales of how he treated Shelley Duvall on the set of The Shining are just legendary. 127 takes for that one screaming scene. It's no wonder her hair started falling out. But I guess it takes a certain thing to be that kind of director, because we can definitely say, whereas Spielberg is definitely one of the most also a legendary director. He's never, and he invented the summer blockbuster. He has not had the financial success, the financial pull downs that James Cameron has. Terminator 2. Terminator, Aliens, Terminator 2, fucking True Lies, Titanic, so on and so forth. And then fucking Avatar. I mean, come on. And we're still waiting for Avatar 2.
Seriously, and it's still gonna fucking happen. And I'm still gonna go fucking see it.
He's inventing the technology again for it.
He has to. Except this time, now you get your own avatar suit.
Oh God, the
and you get to walk around in a virtual world while the movie's playing around you.
It's a holographic projection that opens up in the theater, and you experience the movie first person as you walk around the world of Avatar.
You could do it with virtual reality. Not even holographic. Do it with VR. Fuck yeah. Nobody steal that. Hey, copyright. No, I can't say that. Don't take that idea.
So obviously, I mean, James Cameron's up. Now, we've talked about Aliens. We talked about some of our most memorable scenes from it. I'm actually curious, what is your favorite quote from Aliens?
Oh, there's so many. There's so fucking many.
Okay, off the top of my head, I remember one. Okay, hold on. It was when Ripley was asking the lieutenant, how many drops have you been on? And he's like, 38 simulated. And then Vasquez is like, yeah, how many combat drops? And he's like, 2, including this one. And fucking what's his face is like, 2. Oh shit.
Fucking Vasquez is sweet. She's like, how many combat drops? He's like, 2, including this one.
It's like, shit. Oh man.
I will always remember. I mean, come on. And I'm torn because Bill Paxton had so many of the best lines in this movie. Like honorable. I don't want to do any honorable mentions, but the number one is, I say we take off, nuke the site from orbit. It's the. I think I'm misquoting there.
It's like the only way to be sure.
It's that line, but I want to make sure I get it right. Because with stuff like with all of Hudson's lines, game over, man, game over. We're in some real pretty shit now, man. What are we gonna do? Shit like that. But Ripley had the best line. I mean, come on, it's inspired. There's gifs. There's all kinds of crazy shit.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit.
Yeah.
It's the only way to be sure.
The only way to be sure.
I had to give it to Ripley. I had to give it straight to Ripley. Because I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
and my favorite line is probably one of the most quoted, where she puts on the power suit, she walks out from behind the door, and she's just, get away from her, you bitch! And you're just like, ah! I mean, I cheer every time I see. I was like, oh, Queen, you don't know, you done fucked up now.
You might be queen of your bitches, but this is queen of ours.
Alien Queen, you done fucked up now. Get the black dynamite in there, I'm not sure. But it's fucking awesome. Oh, fucking amazing goddamn movie.
So good. It's so good. And this is actually, I want to ask the audience, we said some of our favorite quotes, but actually comment below or shoot us an email. What is your favorite quote from Aliens? There's so many good ones in this film. Let us know, what is your favorite quote?
Weekinhorror@gmail.com.
Thank you. We are waiting.
Weekdays till 8, Saturday and Sundays till 5. Online at chainco.com.
Yes. All major credit cards accepted. Sorry, no CODs.
Results may vary. So we got 2 birthdays this week.
Two of them.
We actually had several. We actually had several birthdays. But I wanted to choose these two. One because I'm an epic legendary fan of one of them. The other one I think deserves a super shout out given current circumstances that are going on. But the first and foremost, happy birthday to Sir Patrick Stewart, born July 13th, 1940. 60 years in the industry and still going strong. Best friends with Sir Ian McKellen. He was Xavier to McKellen's Magneto, one of the most prolific actors. And of course, we know him and we love him as Captain Jean-Luc Picard from TNG.
The best captain from Star Trek. I said it.
Yeah,
I did.
Actually, yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think Avery Brooks' Sisko is a close second, but Picard, 7 seasons, proved that he was the greatest captain.
And I don't know, have y'all seen the new series Picard that came out?
Yeah,
okay,
it
so
is.
I just started that. Yeah,
It's so good.
yeah, it's pretty good so far.
So one of the number one reason that got me to put him on here, because obviously Patrick Stewart is not known for horror roles. Okay, he's done dramatic stuff. You know, he's a legend of both stage and of screen. But the reason I wanted him on here is because he kind of shocked me in a horror movie that we will be talking about soon, and one of Anton Yelchin's last movies, Green Room.
That is not where I thought you were going with that, but okay.
Exactly. Well, because he doesn't really do horror, but Green Room was a horror film,
Yes.
absolutely a horror film. And the last time I remember Patrick Stewart going dark in a role was in Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts, because he played the head of the clandestine organization that was controlling Mel Gibson's character. You know, I can't remember if he was CIA or not like that, but he played like the shadowy government figure. But to play a legit, because in Green Room, he was a fucking white supremacist, KKK motherfucker, but the creepy guy, they're not overt, functioning in society, you completely normal, but the guy who's hiding Nazi memorabilia in his fucking house. That kind of dude. And it was so far removed, and I did not expect it, because what he brings to the role is as a concerned individual trying to mitigate a very, very bad situation. So he comes off as the voice of reason, exactly like you'd expect Captain Picard or Patrick Stewart to come on. He's the voice of reason. He's the most focused one here. He's the guy you got to listen to if you want to get through this thing alive. Oh no, he's the bad guy who's telling all the bad guys what to do.
Oh damn!
And it shocked me.
Professor
so
X.
That's the reason and of course I'm a huge Patrick Stewart fan. I mean, who the fuck is it? Come on.
Yeah, he's so lovable on screen, and he's so charismatic, and he's just, whenever he talks, I have to listen. And I think that's why, like, he does so many, like, narrations and stuff for movies like the Lego movie and like the Ted movies, and Seth MacFarlane uses him constantly again to narrate the openings of his movies. But he just has that commanding presence that's just it's there, because him being British, like, he could never run for president of the United States. But if he did run, I wouldn't even care what he stood for. I'd vote for him. It's like, I want him to command this country.
I saw the way you commanded that ship, motherfucker. You can command this place.
You can.
You to fly down and attack fucking... I was just watching him, too. He's always let's not kill all the people. Let's try to find a way around this. And everybody's like, kill everybody. And he's always, no. All right, you're right.
And of course, his recent turns, obviously, the last Professor X movie, Logan, just, fucking crushed us. I know it crushed me. That was just a heartbreaking role, but I loved the story. I mean, obviously it was a magnificent movie, but he's still putting out stuff. He's got, as sad as it is, and Charlie's Angels was not a movie that needed to be made. It was pretty cool to see him as Bosley in that. I thought that was pretty neat. And he got to play Merlin in The Kid Who Would Be King. But, to say anything about his fucking, his legendary goddamn career, I mean, where would you even start? I mean, I know we all have our favorites.
I mean, there's just so many, because I'm like looking through, because he was,
going all the way back to Dune.
Yeah, the original David Lynch Dune, which is, it's a movie. And I was thinking,
That's a movie. Yeah.
but I mean, on top of it, the fact that he has like an awesome sense of humor because he's like Captain Picard, but then he's the king in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Make him part of the tour.
All commodes should be named, regarded as John.
John. No! Put him in the Tower of London. Make him part of the tour. Fucking great. Oh my god. And I love that he such a distinctive voice. You can always tell when he's doing voice work. Because I think what was it? And I was so bummed because despite the movie could be total shit, but he will always bring a level of credibility to any role, even in like the Emoji Movie, where he was, I think, he was the voice of the poop.
Yeah.
In the Emoji Movie. So, and I do love the fact that he has found so much work with Seth MacFarlane. Both on Family Guy and in doing lending his voice to so much work there. So it's so cool, and he's still going strong. His next, I think he's got one coming out either this year or next year called Dragon Rider, which is based on a German novel. So it's gonna be really. The guy's still going strong even at his age.
I mean, he is, and I can't wait to see what else he has coming. I mean, just let me know what I need to do to get a Picard season 2. Let me know, and I will do it. No questions asked.
All right, we got one more. Alex, who we got?
Yeah, we're.
Oh wait, so sorry, we didn't wish him happy birthday,
Sir Patrick Stewart.
We love you.
Happy
dude.
birthday,
We love you so
happy
much.
birthday, Sir Patrick Stewart.
And now, Alex, who do we have for our final birthday?
All right, final birthday is going to be July 16th, 1971, when Corey Feldman was born.
Oh wow!
Now, Corey Feldman, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, played Tommy.
Yeah. But yeah, actually started the Tommy character that would go on for a few.
Yeah, for a few. And then, of course, he was in Lost Boys, obviously.
And but he was in Gremlins,
Yes.
Mhm.
which I consider a horror film.
You know what? Technically,
second one
yeah.
was
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gremlins and The Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys, where he got hooked up with Corey Haim and started the two Coreys.
The two Corys, the Corey squared.
Yeah.
It's a math joke there.
No, I know. A lot of people, a lot of younger listeners today won't. They may know the name Corey Feldman, or they may not recognize it immediately. But we grew up with Corey, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. The two of them were best friends, and given he was in the Lost Boys, he reprised the role in the Lost Boys, The Tribe, I think, and he's been such a staple. Because we grew up, I grew up. I watched Gremlins, watched the Goonies, watched the Lost Boys. He's still in one of my favorite. He's in one of my favorite Tom Hanks films, The Burbs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then you had stuff like even recently, like Corbin Nash. Like I don't know if you caught him in that. In Sharknado 3, he had a role in that.
yeah, and he's been in large scale films, and of course he's also done some smaller stuff. He did. He's worked with Troma Productions, and one of the in Toxic Avenger 4. He does horror films here and there. The big reason why I wanted to bring him up was just because we know I love Corey Feldman, and I loved Corey Haim before he tragically passed away. These guys were iconic to my childhood. I know they were iconic to your guys' childhood.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because they had the career like I wanted as a kid because they were in so many good movies. Watching Goonies, Gremlins, also like Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
Yeah. It was just
with Fat Jerry O'Connell.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just popped in my head. Sorry, Jerry. I know you're not fat now, but you were chunky then.
You leave him on it.
But yeah, given current things that are going on with Corey, I know he's having a difficult time. He just came out with his documentary about a lot of the really horrendous behind the scenes shit that went on, with child, not just with him, not just with him, but him and Corey Haim and met many other child actors at the time. Obviously, the 70s, the 80s, and early in the 90s were not really a place. We've heard Macaulay Culkin and the tales that he's told. Just it's brutal. Back in the day, it was brutal for a child actor, especially in the 80s. It was just really, really bad. And you see Hollywood true stories, stuff like, stuff that went on The Facts of Life or Different Strokes and shit like that. And it's hard to hear those things now, especially with such a beloved icon. But the fact that it's coming out and he's finally getting to say his piece and shed some light on this, I'm glad that he finally found the strength. I love the dude to death. He was such a surprise. One of my favorite television shows is Psych.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he popped up in the vampire episode, which I thought was badass. He was the bartender, and he just shows up, and I was like, that picture perfect casting. So I love it whenever he does pop up. I like that he's still working today, and I wanted to give him a big shout out, a big happy birthday, other than just a daily splatter. I wanted to give him a huge happy birthday from us, because we love Corey Feldman to death. We love everything he's done, and we wanted to give him kind of just throw out that support for him out in the universe.
Hell yeah. And I also heard that there's going to be a Goonies too, so if that's, a real thing, let's make sure that happens.
That'd be fun.
That would be sweet.
He'll have a part in that. I'm not sure if it's like just a narrative part or like an actual part, but yeah, it'd be really cool to see.
Thanos is back in Goonies too.
Hey, you guys.
Because it was Brolin. It was Brolin, am I right?
Hey, you guys.
Oh my god. Oh, it'd be so cool. But yes, happy birthday, Corey Feldman.
Happy birthday, Corey.
Man.
Wish you all the best.
All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Weekend Horror. Thank you so much for listening. We couldn't do this show without you guys. You guys give us a strength to keep going and push through, and it's so much fun being able to do this every single week. If you want more information, check out our website, weekendhorror.net, right? Go ahead. You can give us feedback, comments, questions, all that other kind of stuff. Email us. I know we said it a couple of times, but you can feel free to email us at weekendhorror@gmail.com. And if you really like what you're hearing, why don't you go ahead and check out our Patreon? We got patreon.com/weekendhorror, where you get early access to our bloodbaths and our after darks, which are bloodbaths is where we use our horror expertise and we put two horror icons together in a fight to the death. And then on top of that, you can also get early access to our After Dark, which once a month we go in and have a celebrity guest come on, and then we just chat with them for a little bit about the state of the horror community and horror films and things that they're looking forward to. So definitely go ahead and check out our Patreon, and then also go ahead and check out our Facebook page and our Twitter page is Facebook/Weekend Horror and at Weekend Horror on Twitter for your daily splatter, which is a little bit of horror knowledge every single day. And then we have going up for about the past month is we have our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, search Weekend Horror, check out our podcasts there. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you always get notifications when our new episodes go up on YouTube. So thank you so much for tuning in.
I'm JL.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Eugene.
We'll see you next week, and as always, stay scared.